For centuries, the concept of hell has existed across cultures, a place of consequence, judgment, and moral reckoning. But few depictions have shaped the Western imagination as powerfully as the structured vision of the 9 circles of hell. Unlike vague ideas of fire and torment, this model presents hell as organized, deliberate, and hierarchical. It is not chaos, it is architecture, a descending order of moral failure, where each level reflects a deeper corruption of the human soul. The 9 circles are not merely punishments, they represent a philosophy, a classification of sin based on reason, intention, and betrayal. This is not just a story about the afterlife. It is a moral system carved into eternity. The 9 circles are arranged in descending order beneath the earth. Each circle punishes a specific category of sin, and the severity increases as one moves downward. The structure follows a pattern rooted in medieval theology and Aristotelian ethics. The upper circles punish sins of excess and lack of self-control. The middle circles punish violence. The lower circles punish deliberate deception and betrayal. As the descent continues, punishments become colder, darker, and more isolating. The environment itself changes, from winds and rain to fire and eventually ice. The symbolism is intentional. The deeper the sin, the further it strays from reason and love. The first circle is limbo. This is the outermost region of hell and the least severe. It is reserved not for active sinners, but for those who lived without formal inclusion in divine grace. In medieval Christian thought, this included virtuous individuals who were not baptized, as well as noble pagans who lived before Christianity. Limbo is not a place of torture. There are no demons, no fire, no physical torment. Instead, it is a place of eternal separation. The souls here exist in a shadowed landscape, dignified yet deprived. They possess knowledge, reason, and memory, but they lack access to divine presence. The punishment is subtle, eternal longing. It reflects the belief that salvation was tied to faith. Even moral excellence alone was considered incomplete without spiritual alignment. Limbo represents exclusion rather than cruelty. The second circle marks the beginning of active punishment. Here reside those overcome by lust, individuals who allowed physical desire to overpower moral restraint. The environment is defined by a violent, endless storm. Souls are swept through dark air without rest or control. The wind is symbolic. In life, these individuals were carried by passion, unable to ground themselves in reason. In death, they are literally carried by force. There is no stability, no peace, no pause. The punishment reflects medieval views on uncontrolled desire, not merely as physical indulgence, but as surrender to impulse over intellect. Lust is placed near the top because it is considered a sin of weakness rather than malice. But it is still a failure of balance. Descending further, the atmosphere becomes heavy and foul. The third circle punishes gluttony, excessive consumption of food, drink, and pleasure. Here, cold rain mixed with filth falls continuously. The ground is thick with mud and decay. The souls lie in the sludge, exposed to freezing rain and guarded by a monstrous creature. The imagery is deliberate. In life, gluttons consumed excessively, driven by appetite. In death, they are immersed in the very excess they pursued. But unlike the pleasure they once sought, this version is rotten and degrading. Gluttony represents surrender to appetite without moderation, a life governed by physical craving rather than discipline. The punishment transforms indulgence into humiliation. The fourth circle addresses greed and wastefulness. Two groups occupy this level: those who hoarded wealth obsessively and those who squandered it recklessly. Both are punished equally. They push enormous weights in opposing semicircles. When they collide, they shout accusations at one another before turning to repeat the motion endlessly. The symbolism is powerful. Wealth in life define their purpose. In death, it becomes a literal burden. The repetition signifies futility. In medieval philosophy, greed was not merely about money. It represented misplaced devotion, valuing material accumulation above spiritual integrity. Both extremes, hoarding and reckless spending, reveal imbalance. The Punishment is eternal labor without meaning. The fifth circle is defined by the river Styx, a dark, swamp-like body of water. Here reside two types of souls, the wrathful and the sullen. The wrathful express open rage. They fight violently on the surface of the swamp, attacking one another endlessly. The sullen, however, are submerged beneath the water. They gurgle in the mud, unable to speak clearly. These are individuals who suppressed anger, allowing bitterness to consume them internally. The dual punishment reflects two distortions of anger: explosive aggression and silent resentment. Medieval ethics did not condemn anger itself, but uncontrolled anger. Wrath represents emotions severed from reason. The swamp symbolizes stagnation, an environment where hostility never resolves, only festers. The sixth circle marks a turning point. Here stand the burning tombs of heretics. Those who rejected established religious doctrine, particularly beliefs about the soul's immortality. Each soul lies trapped in a fiery grave. The city surrounding them glows red with heat. The punishment mirrors their intellectual defiance. In life, they denied eternal truths. In death, they are confined in eternal consequence. Unlike earlier circles that focus on appetite and emotion, heresy represents conscious ideological rebellion. This level reflects medieval society's deep integration of religion and law. To deny theological truth was considered a grave distortion of reality itself. The burning tomb is both prison and statement. The seventh circle is divided into three distinct rings, each addressing violence in different forms. Violence in medieval philosophy was seen as a direct attack on God's creation. This ring contains murderers, tyrants, and war criminals. They are submerged in a river of boiling blood. The depth corresponds to the severity of their crimes. The symbolism is direct. Those who shed blood are immersed in it. The boiling temperature represents the intensity of their brutality. Violence against others is seen as an assault on human dignity. This ring contains those who committed suicide. Here, souls are transformed into twisted trees in a dark forest. They cannot move or speak unless their branches are broken, at which point they bleed and cry out. In medieval belief, suicide was considered a rejection of God's gift of life. The transformation into trees represents loss of human identity. Having rejected their bodies in life, they are denied them in death. The forest is silent, oppressive, and unnatural. This final ring punishes blasphemers, sodomites, and usurers. The landscape is a barren desert. Fire rains from the sky continuously. Blasphemers lie flat on the burning sand. Others wander endlessly beneath falling flames. The desert represents sterility, a world stripped of divine harmony. This ring reflects medieval theological hierarchy. Offenses against divine order were considered more severe than physical violence. The eighth circle is one of the most complex. It is called Malabolgi, meaning evil ditches, and it consists of 10 separate trenches. Fraud is viewed as more serious than violence because it involves intellect. It requires planning, manipulation, and deliberate betrayal of trust. Each trench punishes a specific type of deception. Seducers are driven by whips. Flatterers are submerged in filth. Corrupt church officials are buried upside down with flames burning their feet. Fortune tellers have their heads twisted backward. Corrupt officials are submerged in boiling pitch. Hypocrites wear heavy cloaks lined with lead. Thieves are bitten and transformed by serpents. False advisors burn within individual flames. Sowers of discord are repeatedly mutilated. Falsifiers suffer disease and madness. Fraud destroys social order. It corrupts trust, the foundation of civilization. For that reason, it is placed deep within hell's structure. The final circle is the coldest and darkest. It is not fire that defines ultimate evil. It is ice. The ninth circle punishes treachery, betrayal of special trust. The lake at its center is completely frozen. This circle is divided into 4 regions: betrayal of family, betrayal of country, betrayal of guests, betrayal of benefactors. As one descends, souls are frozen more deeply into the ice. At the very bottom, they are completely encased. The symbolism is profound. Betrayal is considered the coldest sin because it violates bonds of love and loyalty. Unlike passion-driven sins, treachery is calculated. It is intentional harm against those who trusted. The absence of fire here is deliberate. Ultimate evil is not passion. It is the absence of warmth, the absence of love. The 9 circles are not random punishments. They reflect a concept known as contrapasso, a punishment that mirrors or contrasts the sin itself. Storms for the lustful, mud for the gluttonous, weight for the greedy, fire for the violent, ice for the treacherous. This system transforms morality into geography. Each environment is psychological as well as physical. The structure also reflects medieval classification of sin: incontinence, lack of self-control, violence, fraud, and betrayal. The deeper the circle, the more deliberate the sin. This hierarchy places calculated betrayal as the ultimate corruption. The 9 circles of hell have influenced literature, art, theology, and modern entertainment for centuries. Paintings, novels, films, and video games draw from its imagery. Even people unfamiliar with medieval theology recognize the idea of circles of hell. The structure persists because it offers something powerful: moral clarity. Every action has consequence. Every distortion has reflection. The 9 circles can be interpreted not as a literal geography of the afterlife, but as a symbolic map of the human soul. The upper circles represent loss of control. The middle circles represent destructive force. The lower circles represent betrayal of trust. At its core, the structure suggests that evil deepens when love turns cold, when reason is replaced by manipulation, and loyalty is replaced by treachery. Whether viewed as theology, literature, or philosophy, the 9 circles endure because they confront a universal question. If justice were perfectly measured, what would it look like? And where would each of us stand?